saw Doctor Strange.
Yes, so you can speak about it in a very limited capacity.
It kind of had the structure to a standard origin story, but when it actually got into what was happening, it was a bit mental.
In a good way?
Yeah, it was like an acid trip at points. I think they were really missing a trick, though, in the fact that they didn't include... They should have had a theme tune for Doctor Strange, and it should have been something along the lines of Doctor Strange, calling Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, wake up now. Wake up now. And then they could keep going with that, and they're doing a Supergirl series.
No.
I don't know if it's Netflix or Amazon or whatever, but there's a Supergirl series. And for that, they could have had I'm a Supergirl in a super...
Sung by rather than Aquaman.
That's very good. Unfortunately, they don't have any other popular songs, so that's where that... Actually, they had a song, I think it was off that same first album, called Turn Back Time, which could also be used for...
What if I could turn back
time?
Oh yeah, I've heard this.
It was hard. So yeah, Aqua Turn Back Time could be used for Doctor Strange as well. But that's about as far as that joke goes.
I was going to speak about the John Frusciante thing.
Or you can do the John Frusciante thing.
Well, we haven't spoken about it for a while, and it is basically, he's the reason for this podcast.
Yeah.
I was researching every now and then, I look up, just to make sure he hasn't died. I look up stuff online about him.
I still feel like if he did die, it would be fairly...
Selfish of him.
It'd be very selfish, depending on how he died.
Yeah.
I might actually go and grab Pepsi, if that's okay.
Yeah? You can do what you want. If I'd have said no, how would that have gone?
Oh, okay. I won't do that.
So, this was from April. So, they talk about Trickfinger and Foreskin, which was his most recent release.
His tricky fingers and foreskin growth.
Yeah, exactly.
His foreskin growth.
No wonder he's been out of the public eye. It's an interview from Thump, which says it's part of Vice. So I'm guessing Vice magazine. Thump is some online part of it. I don't know if it's the music side of it or something. It's by an interview with Colin Joyce, a phone interview, or 2 phone interviews as such. But it says John Frusciante is having a bad day. He pretty much says as much when he rebusts the very first question I ask him. I say, "What have you been up to today?" And with a groan, he says, "I'm not really going to talk about that." And then he says, "It's not easy. It's not something I want to talk about with the public. Just about all this, stuff and all that." And then he goes on to talk about how they found out info how his wife is seeking tens of thousands of dollars a month from him, who he's recently split up with or has recently blah blah blah. So he starts talking about his stuff and how I didn't realise that his last 2 albums, one was from 2007 and one was from 2009, and he only released them last year. So actually old work. He just releases stuff as and when he wants.
Yeah.
He makes music now basically for himself, and he decides to release it when he wants. It's not for the public.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah, which we've had that whole thing about doesn't write music for the fans, blah blah blah.
And then where he spent ages talking about a very specific effect he used, and then it wasn't actually on the final recording.
Yeah.
But he talked about it for multiple paragraphs.
Yeah, exactly. So they ask him with
foreskin growth.
They say, are there any specific things you were listening to or thinking about when you're making this new stuff? It's almost weird talking about this album because obviously it was made several years prior, and so you're probably not really at that place. And he says, I could. I actually feel uncomfortable talking. You know what? I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with you. I'm just not in a really good state of mind today, and I can see this interview isn't going to go well, so I'm going to have to bow out of it.
Wow.
And they say, are you sure you can take this conversation wherever you want to go? He says, I'm in a poor state of mind. I was in a poor state of mind before the interview, and I was questioning whether or not I should do it at all. I didn't want to cancel so late, but I've had a tough morning. I'm really not in any kind of state of mind to do an interview. And they say, sorry.
It sounds like if he was going to guest star on this podcast.
Yeah. This is going better than how that would go. They got a response. We should really email him.
Yeah, we should, because he's really out of the public eye now. He might agree to it.
He might agree to it, yeah. And so are we. So he says, sorry if they say, Vice say, sorry if there was anything I was going to do that made you feel worse. This guy, Colin.
Yeah.
He says, no, it was absolutely nothing you were doing. I have my mind on other things now. I thought maybe the interview could distract me from... What do you think it was distracting him from?
Probably a bit too obvious to go with the money that his wife is seeking.
That's what I thought, but he says, to be honest with you, your first question, what I was doing before you called, I was reading a book, a 900-page book that I'm halfway through and that I'm obsessed with, and I kept reading the same paragraph over and over. My brain's just not able to concentrate right now because I'm distracted by some other things. So it might be that, but I don't know if the book's a legal book, like he's trying to do his case or what, but it's like me, we never sit and read the book, someone reads like, can you fuck off please, I just really want to finish this book. It just seems like that, bless him.
I think maybe he's heard some of the reviews for, Trick Finger. He perhaps,
Are they that bad?
Yeah, he perhaps listened to the podcast where we talked about it briefly.
Yeah.
And he's feeling a bit down on himself because we're the premier John Frusciante podcast.
And we've poo-pooed him.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ring him and apologise.
We should tell him to listen to our review of Zone, that song he released.
Oh, the acoustic song?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good song.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that when we have that interview with him. So anyway, they say, how you doing today? He says, yeah, I feel fine today, blah, blah, blah. He says he doesn't speak about his private life, but basically there's a lot more stuff happening about his divorce when they're doing this interview and all that. And so he starts saying about he stopped writing songs in the traditional manner a long time ago.
Maybe he blames himself for the latest Chili Peppers album.
Maybe, for not being there.
Yeah.
I should have been there. He has thoughts that are completely musical thoughts. They consume a lot of my headspace, he says. I think a lot of the time with my music, I'm trying to fill the gaps that I see in the music that other people are making, because I'm a lover of all types of music from all different times of history. I see good musical ideas in my mind that in my mind had a long way to go before they were exhausted. I try to fill in those holes a lot of the time to bridge those gaps. They say, is that why you were making Acid House in 2007? He said, well, that was just to learn the vocabulary. When you play guitar, you're doing one thing at a time. But when I was doing the Acid House thing, I was playing 15 machines at the same time. You have to get used to having your mind on a lot of different things. He talks about, he likes Aphex Twin, Square Pusher, and that was the starting point. So I figured I'm going to spend the most of my life being a composer in the modern sense. I need to learn how to start doing that.
Hearing this, do you think maybe one day he's going to come out with either an album or just a song, and it's the most original thing and like brilliant and perfect thing you've ever heard, and he's just taken everything he's learned and put it into one?
What do you mean?
Well, I just feel like he's trying to reach for something that doesn't exist.
I don't think he is. I can kind of... Well, I can't at all empathise, is that the word? Because he's a recovering mass heroin addict.
Yeah.
He's exceptionally musical. He's exceptionally talented.
I don't think he's a recovering heroin addict anymore, because I think that's so, like, in the past.
So in the 90s.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Generally, heroin addicts say every day's a struggle.
17 years since...
Yeah, so maybe he's out there, but the fact that he's been through a lot is my point, and he's been psychedelically
or is it 18
psychologically
years?
96? 20 years?
No, it's 98 since they bought him his Gretsch White Falcon.
I think he quit heroin in 96.
I think he quit in 98, because Smile From the Streets You Hold was 97.
Oh, right, okay.
And that was released to pay for drugs.
So 18 years then.
Yeah.
He's an exceptionally talented man, and I think that he is consumed by music, and as somebody who's quite reclusive anyway, I think he's just withdrawn into his own world where it is all music. And to be fair, he's a musician, so that's not really a bad thing. It's just that he's not a social person, but we shouldn't ostracise him for that, because in some respects I'm not. And
I hold hope that he's going to come back one day, not necessarily with something that's big in terms of like commercial success, but
something more how he was, something more in a structured song sense.
Yeah, not even necessarily how he was, just something very impressive
that you can palatable.
Yeah, and that you can tell it's him, but you can tell it's...
But the same, I know exactly what you mean. I like that as well, because that was like the golden age of his songwriting, was when he released like all those, 2004, 2005, something like that, when he released all those albums in 1 year, and they were all really coherent, very clever albums.
The best one was the first one, though, Shadows Collide.
Shadows Collide, yeah.
And it makes sense that was the best one.
What's the one, Inside of Emptiness? It's got that, it's still rocky, but it's raw, and it's got some great, simple songs on it.
Because it makes sense that Shadows Collide was the best one, because it was the first one coming off the By the Way album, and it had that By the Way sound, production quality, so he still had probably a lot of fresh ideas that he wanted to try by himself, but he also had production behind him that was stopping him from doing something too weird.
We should chronicle his transition from By the Way, maybe from Californication to By the Way, to his solo stuff, and from that point on.
What, you know where
bringing in Stadium Arcadium.
You know where we did the Chili Peppers reviews of each of the albums?
Yeah.
We could do it with just John Frusciante.
John Frusciante, yeah. Should we do it? I think we should do that.
That's
our next summer special.
Yeah, that's our next special. And if we can get him to just give a small statement.
Even if he says, fuck off, stop bothering me, I'll call the police.
As long as we can, like, littered throughout the episode, we just keep going back to, and this episode will end with a small statement from...
Or just a photo of the restraining order or something.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, say Chili Peppers is running here,
Mm.
and his solo stuff's running here.
Mm.
So when it hits, say, Californication to By the Way, and it starts like solo sort of stuff,
Yeah.
in a sort of more coherent sense, yeah. Stadium Arcadium hits is kind of the beautiful merge of his really beautiful but simple solo stuff and his amazing guitaring shown in Stadium Arcadium.
Mm.
Then he fizzles out for the Chili Peppers, and then his solo stuff just does that.
Yeah, it's
Goes
all
mental,
over. It's
yeah.
all over the place. I listened to Strip My Mind the other day,
Yeah.
just because I put on Dark Necessities, and
Yeah.
I just was like, this is the best Chili Peppers song of
The new era.
the new era, but it's still missing that driving force.
It's still not.
I put on Strip My Mind because it's John Frusciante. It starts with him just playing very minimalistic,
Yeah.
just playing
Chords, simple
playing
chords, yeah.
chords, wailing with a echoey
Whoa.
effect.
Yeah.
And that happens for a good 10 seconds or more before anyone else does anything. And that's the driving sound of
And
the
it's
song.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's what he's great at doing. He's an amazing guitarist, but he can do the simplest thing and make it beautiful.
Yeah. It brings in everyone else's sound with Kiedis' vocals. Kiedis can be very hit and miss on the sort of slow to mid-pace songs, but on that, it's
perfect.
really strong.
And his lyrical content's great in that.
But then when everyone else has had their work put into it, it then comes down to that very gritty guitar solo.
Yeah. He is. He's the driving force behind the Chili Peppers.
He's been gone for almost 10 years.
I know, and he's still. That's why I don't think I care as much for them really. But that song, even I love because Anthony Kiedis' lyrics, they're always strange. With that song, certain lines in it that just go because it's quite a melancholic song.
Mm.
And his line goes like, "Hot as Hades, early '80s.
Yeah.
The boulevard has never been so full of life and love again." I think he says.
Yeah.
But he goes,
Boulevard's never
been so full of love. But there's and the one before that, he goes, Arthur Jaded indicated the boulevard's never been so full. Then he goes, hot as Hades, early '80s.
Yeah.
Sing another song and make me feel like I'm in love again.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like he's taking it back to when the Chili started. That whole 1980s, late '80s, California.
Yeah.
That was their moment as such. That was when they were in the cool. You know what I mean? That was like when the Chili formed.
Yeah.
And even everything they'd done after that. That was kind of the time where they will remember.
Yeah.
Like the summer of love for them.
To be honest, like Kiedis' lyrics have probably been just as good as they've always as they've been with Frusciante as they are now.
It's just the music to go with it.
Yeah, the music to go with it gives it that gravitas and
Yeah.
real feeling
Yeah.
that it doesn't have as much now.
Like Other Side, most simple guitar and bass line ever.
Yeah.
And with those lyrics, it hurts, doesn't it?
It does hurt, but I saw them twice. Both times in various stages of what I'd call their prime.
Both with Frusciante.
Yeah. So I saw them in about 2000 when they
By the
were
Way.
By the Way.
Between Californication.
Yeah, way after, to the point, after Californication, to the point where they're trying out new songs that you haven't heard yet. And then I saw them again in 2007 or 2006, touring for Stadium Arcadium. So I saw them at two really good points.
That's really good, yeah. So I saw them at Stadium Arcadium. I would like to have seen them back then. My mate saw them for the By the Way tour.
Yeah.
And my mate Eleni was like, I touched Anthony Kiedis' shin. It was amazing. Just like they're grabbing at him. She was obsessed with Anthony Kiedis.
Oh, they're definitely better on the Stadium Arcadium one, though.
That was when they were sober. Well, I suppose they were sober from Californication, weren't they? Or Frusciante was.
I remember reading that Kiedis relapsed some point after Californication.
That was their peak as such, wasn't it?
So it could have been around then. They were good, but there was no honest interaction with the crowd. I think they were the headlining band and Foo Fighters was the support, but Foo Fighters were better.
When they played By the Way, Mars Volta were their support.
Oh, that's cool.
Quite a shame. And that was when they would have released
That
their
makes
first
sense,
album.
doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
So that kind of interview you were talking through just ended.
So the first one did, then he came back and said, sorry, I was reading the book last time. And this is what I'm...
Sorry, I was reading Spot the Dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Have I told you I got a signed all the Arsenal players of 1987?
So you got a signed arse?
Yeah, I got a signed Spot the Dog's First Christmas book when I was in hospital and the Arsenal team visited the hospital. I've got a signed book by the Arsenal team, Spot the Dog.
Why Spot the Dog?
Because when I was a kid, it was my first Christmas and my mum bought me Spot's first Christmas and I was in hospital because my leg, I had a hip problem.
Okay.
And so, when I said that, a cool problem.
Your birthing hips.
I had a hip problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a hipster problem.
Yeah, yeah.
You were a hipster.
Too much coffee.
Yeah.
Too much fair trade coffee. So anyway, so he then says about, in a sense, is making electronic music escapist for you, whatever. He says, escaping from what? And they say, being in your own head, the mundanities of life. He said, there's not much person to me. And there has never been. I think of myself as kind of a non-person.
Mm.
Looking back at my life, I've always been most at home with art and with creativity. From another person's perspective, it might look selfish or that I'm escaping from the real world, but for me, the world of art and music is the real world, and the rest is a place that I don't really understand.
Mm.
And I think in that he's pretty much summed up him.
Yeah.
And I completely respect what he's saying, because that is what he is. He's transcended humanity and become a musical sound wave. I truly believe he has. He's been absorbed by music. He is music. You know, like that man who goes, "I am the Matrix" or whatever. Yeah. He is music. I was once called John Frusciante.
I can totally believe that.
Yeah.
He's going to get to a point where he just says, "I am
He's a
music."
voice on the phone. He might not be a physical person. He might just be sound waves now.
Every question the interviewer asked, he harmonised.
Yeah. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? As a child, at about the age of 11, I started feeling like I was going crazy. I started to have the feeling I may be somebody who had wound up murdering people without having the ability to prevent myself from doing it. My interactions with human beings were so difficult, it started to make me feel like I was losing control of my mind. And that's when I started playing guitar. That's when I started actually murdering people. That's when I started playing guitar. I went from being a guy who was strictly into punk rock to somebody who loved 60s music and all those ideals. Then I couldn't imagine myself killing anybody or anything like that, which is good.
That's where he turned into a hippie.
Yeah. Either that or just all out carnage of murdering everyone. And that's what I had going on inside me. That's what the world was bringing out inside me. Without
what, going inside?
Going inside, yeah. You can throw your life away doing that. I get out a lot of things by making music, where I think the only other way to get them out would be by doing things that are destructive to other people or destructive to myself. There's definitely a part of me that needs to be left alone and hidden from the rest of the world. So music became a framework. Then they asked, music became a framework for you to interact with the world. So not only that, the fact that I was such good luck with business people that have been with me throughout my career has freed me up to not have to think about mundane aspects of life. At this point in my life, for the last 8 years or so, because of all the good hard work that I did and they did, I'm generally a person who gets to decide what he wants to spend his day doing every day. The lucky bastard. Yeah. It's hard to explain to people who aren't devout musicians themselves. Whether I practice along with record or whether I make my own music, I get the sensation of going inside of something in the same way that you go inside a house and be separate from the world. I notice it especially with using things like the modular synthesizer or the Electron mono machine or the Roland MC202. 202. When I'm making music, I cease to exist, but also the outside world ceases to exist, and I'm in the world that I've created.
He's very eloquent.
He is. But I love how all that, and all of a sudden he just mentions, like, I notice especially using things like the Electron Mono Machine or the Roland MC202. He basically wants to be left alone from fame. He doesn't want fame. He doesn't want... Omar said ages ago, I think I mentioned this in the podcast, where Omar from the Mars Volta, and he said John's not in a place in his life right now where he wants to be anything that's considered a product. Yeah. And it's true. I think he just literally wants to play music for his own benefit. Yeah. He'll release it later, probably because for the money. And not for doing it for the money. He's doing it for his own belief. And that's the beauty of it.
Pay off his ex-wife.
Yeah. Well, that'll be that now. He'll probably release some commercials. You'll probably be happy now. He'll probably release some commercial stuff now. That kind of like he does what he wants, and then he decides, oh fuck it, you know what, I'll release that. But he's not doing it for the pressure of releasing it for fans. Yeah. And then I think you get more true artistry through that.
At some point, I would like us to go through the Daniel Johns album. His solo album. I think it will break you. Right?
Is it shit?
On first listen, because the point I listened to it, it fit really well for when you were telling me about Silverchair, and I just bought every Silverchair album and listened through them, and about a month later, he released his solo album, which was over 10 years after the last Silverchair album. Yeah. And on first listen, I thought it was the biggest bag of shit and most disappointing thing I'd ever heard. Listen to it twice again, and it's actually okay. It's just so different.
Do you feel... Have you heard the Dissociatives?
No, you played a bit of that, and it sounded more like the last Silverchair album.
A bit more quirky, from what I remember.
Yeah, with the orchestra stuff.
Yeah. That was released in maybe 2003, 2004, something like that.
I think that was later. I think it was 2006.
With Daniel Johns, I picture him in some ways to be more like Chris Cornell in terms of...
He's more pretentious.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I think Chris Cornell...
He's more knowingly pretentious. Yeah. Whereas John Frusciante is just off in his own space.
Yeah. I read a thing about Tom Morello where he basically said, because obviously he did rage, Tom Morello's always been a very politically active person. Which I know I have my whole thing about music, but I've come to accept that music is basically an expression of whatever anyone wants.
Mm.
So I shouldn't really. I feel bad for before knocking people who use political music as a political outlet. They should use it for whatever they feel passionate about.
Yeah.
And Tom Morello is very much one of those people.
Mm.
I think his father was a diplomat,
Mm.
if I remember rightly from reading something, and he's always had an active life, so that's always what he's grown up knowing. And obviously Rage was a very politically active band.
Yeah.
And he speaks about how Audio Slave was purely for the music.
Yeah.
And he said, as much as I liked it, because he still had his own political things at the same time. I can't remember what the band's called. He had a political band with maybe Damon Albarn or with someone.
He had a solo thing called The Night Watchman.
That's it. But it's got a couple of other people in it from other things.
Not really. It's mostly him and it's acoustic. He's got a new band called Prophets of Rage.
It might be it might be Night Watchman. It was his political outlet, and he said when I was doing Audio Slave, because it wasn't about the politics, it was just about the music.
Group called Axis of Justice.
Is that with Tom York?
Was that with Surge?
Yeah, it was Surge. That was it. Surge. It was Surge. Yeah, not Tom York.
They are slightly different.
Yeah, slightly different. No, I knew it was someone, a front man of a band. I know it sounds really vague, but like. It was someone big, and that was his political outlet.
Yeah.
While he was doing Audio Slave, and he said because for him it's like almost like a habit. Like it was like while I'm doing it, I need to be doing my political stuff as well. And I feel that Chris Cornell, on the opposite, like Daniel Johns, even though Daniel Johns is quite politically active in humanitarian ways.
Well, Chris Cornell's stuff is more pretentious and more introverted, and he's singing about alcohol and himself and black holes.
Yeah. Like that better me.
Yeah. Did you see, I posted to you on Facebook, the Muse Halloween special?
I haven't been on for ages.
They did a music video that is it's nothing to do with any of their albums. It's a cover song of, it might be The Cramps. It's like a 30-year-old song, and it's a comedy song. They did a comedy Halloween song. And it's really basic, but really stupid, and they're all like in black leather.
Is it any good?
No. Musically, it's really basic for them, but you can see they're having fun, and it's just nice to see.
With Biffy, I've watched a few of their live performances. When they're playing a song, such as Sounds Like Balloons,
yeah,
you know when it goes, "This is not da-da-loon, da-da-loon, for your entertainment, da-da-loon, da-da-loon, the land," but they go, "Are you ready? The land." And they keep doing that. They go like, "Oh, this song's called this,
yeah."
So rock out to it almost. It's like too contrived. Like I'd rather they didn't say anything because they don't need to say anything.
That's interesting you say that, because
and that's what they go. "Are you ready for this?" Like, and it's like,
yeah,
and it's like you don't need to say that.
I've often thought that their big rock anthem type songs are like the Foo Fighters' big rock anthem type songs.
For crowd wavers. And
something that the Foo Fighters do with almost every song is when it comes to the chorus, Dave Grohl will just scream. Like he'll be singing the lyrics that go right up to the chorus. However, he'll ignore the last three words and just scream.
Yeah.
Here's the chorus. Ah!
Yeah. It's like that's what he does with like when he plays guitar as well. I've noticed with certain things because they have a backup guitarist, Biffy. Yeah. Of second guitars. I know a lot of bands do it. I don't agree with it. Because I feel they're strong enough to do it as a three-piece, and when they do it, it gives Simon Neil or whoever leeway to basically, like you say with the lyrics, he just plays. He doesn't even play anything on guitar.
To just play the vague chords.
He just
of the
sings
song.
it, but it's like all the talent that he does have because you can see him play that in other sections.
I always think
could do it then.
That's a weird thing when you've got a three-piece band and they hire a second guitarist.
Muse do it.
Muse have done it, and they've also hired a piano or synthesizer.
They used to do it just three of them, and they could do it fine.
And it's more interesting when they used to do it three of them because he would either
limited, and you do it how you can.
He would either try and play all the guitar and piano parts on piano or all on guitar.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to watch the differences between him trying it on either instrument. Green Day, they hired a second guitarist for like quite a few of their tours for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they made him a full-time member.
Oh, right.
For one album. And then he went back to session member for... It's just weird.
I think they're good enough to do it without, because especially like Muse, when they did it, when they used to do it as a three-piece in little gigs.
Josh Klinghoffer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't need him. They never needed him, I don't think.
When I saw Chili Peppers live in 2006, 2007, he was a backing guitarist. the amount of times you see John Frusciante go off and just be jamming with him.
Yeah. See, when they're jamming, that's cool, but when he's just there to make the song more like the album, which is all the session musician really is,
Yeah.
they can't, I don't think it should be a thing.
Yeah, it's unnecessary.
Have they got
Placebo do
figures?
that in an interesting way. They do have a backing guitarist, but he's usually like quite low in the mix. But they have a backing violin player. Now, she's only apparent for, I would say, a third of the songs, but when it comes to the live shows, she's playing for almost every song. It changes it.
Yeah, but that's kind of different. It's like not like because having a backing session guy is no real different to just having the backing track playing and playing over it. But with a violin, they're adding something to it.
Yeah. So particularly for their older songs, they add violin to it and it sounds different.
Yeah, but that's good. That's like an addition. But just doing it like that, it just to me doesn't seem fair. Because I think the whole point of a 3-piece as well is that limitation.
Is that it's a 3-piece.
And it makes the band.
Blink-182 still plays a 3-piece. Did you hear the Placebo thing recently?
No.
So they're on their 20th anniversary tour and they've released a greatest hits that's a 2-disc one that covers their whole 20 years. And on the first night of the tour, he walked off stage in the third song and didn't come back.
Who, Brian Molko?
Yeah.
Why?
Apparently he started slurring his words in the third song, and the third song was the lead single off their new greatest hits.
Oh, okay. Is it like a new song?
Yeah. And he started slurring his words and then just stopped singing completely and then just like had a quick rant and walked off stage and didn't come back.
Shit. What's that about?
He's apologised for it and said it's due to some prescription medication that had an adverse effect. But they've had a history of like drug issues.
Is there a prescription? That's bad. Maybe he's just in a bad place.
Maybe.
Are all those Resident Evil toys new?
No, they I got them from my mum's house. They're like probably about 15 years old.
The Liquor, Leon Claire. What's that one? The big fella.
I think it's the Tyrant.
It's not the original Tyrant though.
And then there's the Terminator casually behind it.
Yeah.
I think from the game rather than the film.
I've got a Chris Redgrave from the first one.
Are you saying that because
he's got red hair?
Because in the films, the guy they got to play Chris Redfield was...
Is it Redfield or Redgrave?
Redfield.
Redfield, sorry, that's Claire Redfield then. Sorry,
it was the guy from Prison Break who recently-ish came out.
What's his name?
Chris Redgay.
What's his name? His name in it is Michael Schofield. That's his name in Prison Break.
Yeah.
Wentworth Miller.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Can I have another drink?
Yeah, I don't need one.
You pissed?
Yeah.
I don't know how you're so pissed.
No, I don't. I'm going to slow down for a while.
Okay. If you want me to go.
Huh?
If you want me to go.
No.
You sure?
No.
That was more sinister, that second one. No. So the Hague Club whiskey is single grain.
If you have a shot of it, is it a mini Clubman?
Is that a car?
That's a car. That's my little car joke. It's probably the only one I can make. So you're drinking Hague Club Mini
Whiskey.
Clubman?
Which is basically I'm exhausting your whiskey supply. I say that so far I've had 2 whiskies.
I'm drinking Pepsi.
Just Pepsi.
Just Pepsi.
Are you really? You got drunk out of nowhere.
Yeah. I've also had a Mars bar.
Ingested through the mouth or via a noose.